Hi everyone and welcome. I'm Gabrielle Martin and it's a pleasure to have you with us for another episode of Open Your Eyes to the Universe. If you're joining us for the first time, a very warm welcome, and let me tell you what the program is about. It's a series of contemporary talks, conversations, open-eyed meditations and interviews with people who inspire and uplift others by sharing their wisdom, sharing their insights and their experiences with us. As we begin, the Youniverse team would like to acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the traditional custodians of the land upon which we meet. We pay our respects to the elders of the past, the elders of the present and future, and acknowledge their spiritual connection to country. And we also acknowledge and respect the wise elder within us all and the collective wisdom of all those here this evening. Last month, you might recall that on Youniverse, we were in conversation with Dr. Janara Goring, who was sharing her spiritual journey with us as a First Nations woman. Janara referred to Dr. Miriam Rose, an Aboriginal elder and a Senior Australian of the Year in 2021, who highlighted the importance of darari, deep listening, to the self and to others, and Janara put this into the context of her own spiritual journey. And I sense that this aspect of deep listening will be woven in tonight's conversation on exploring the feminine. It's a timely topic as we approach International Women's Day on the 8th of March. And as you may know, the purpose of that day is to uphold women's achievements, recognise challenges, and focus greater attention on women's rights and gender. So tonight, in anticipation of International Women's Day, we're focusing on exploring the feminine. And as I was preparing for this, I was reminded of a quote from Bell Hooks, an American scholar and activist whose work examined the connections between race, gender, and class. She said, "Imagine living in a world where there is no domination, where females and males are not alike or even always equal, but where a vision of mutuality is the ethos shaping our interaction." And tonight we're in the company of three inspirational women living diverse lives and who dare to imagine differently. Angelica Fanjul from Chile is a social leader. Maureen O'Connor from Australia has a background in education, organisation development and family therapy. And Philippa Blackham joins us from England, and she's an award-winning documentary maker and radio presenter. Our speakers, Angelica, Maureen and Philippa, will be considering the feminine from an empowering spiritual perspective. All three women meditate daily, and they will share a conversation with us about their experiences of the feminine in their lives. They'll contemplate the fluidity of the feminine and change, both inner and outer change, within their spiritual journeys. And they'll also give thought to their experiences of women as spiritual leaders. So that briefly introduces our three guests and touches on the framework of our conversation this evening. And I'm going to expand more on this as we move into the conversation. Now, viewers, as always, we welcome your participation and your questions. So thanks to those who've sent them in already. And if you'd like to ask a question as we move along, then please pop it in the chat box and we'll pitch the question during the Q&A. So Angelica, Maureen and Philippa, it's a pleasure to have each of you with us tonight. I'm very much looking forward to listening to your experiences and explorations of the feminine. In fact, I'm tingling with anticipation. So I think we're in for a really good evening. So thanks for taking some time out to join us in this part of the world. A very, very warm welcome from Down Under and to Down Under.
Thanks, Gabrielle. Great to be here.
Thank you, Gabrielle.
Yeah, lovely. So you will get a chance to see them if they're not on the screen at the moment. But I'm going to start by introducing our first speaker, and that's Angelica Fanjul. Now, Angelica is a passionate social leader whose political understanding allows her to read the public frame, the press and context. As a social leader, Angelica brings the feminine to the forefront of her work. She's a natural producer and coordinator of national and international seminars. She's a pioneer in creating shared values and bringing together government sectors, businesses, NGOs, academics and media. Angelica has been at the forefront of the environmental movement in Chile, where she developed national policies and practices to include the voices of the citizens. I know her as someone who cares deeply and is deeply caring. Angelica, it would be useful if you could outline for us what is the feminine for you and how has this changed for you over time?
Thanks, Gabrielle, for such beautiful invitation. I feel very honored. Thank you so much. And I'm really happy to be here with Philippa and Maureen. Thank you. I want to say this is a topic which I feel still I'm exploring, and probably I will explore all my life. But I came from background very machista, because I born in a family where my dad was very machista, and then I studied forest engineer, where mainly was men, and all my teachers in general and my colleagues, classmates was very machista. And then I need to fight a lot, and I need to be very rebel for start to hear my voice and to listen who I am. And I was thinking to fight was normal, was the right thing to do all the time. And I was strong, and I was in front, and I put my voice, and I think, yeah, that is life. Until one interesting thing happened. I was in New York many years ago, like 2006, and I was in the big meeting with Brahma Kumaris, and I say to one of the senior sisters, you know, I love to be with all of you, but I don't know, I don't like to live how I live in now. And I don't know what next, but I know something needs to change in my life. When I say that, really didn't know what I was saying. But some beautiful things happened. Caroline Ward came to live in Chile, and my niece, she have like 3 years old, came to Chile to see us. And with these two persons, I start to connect with the tenderness. With Caroline, because the tenderness became something inclusive. It was very beautiful because I didn't know what means tenderness. I know I was searching for that, but I don't know what means really. And with Caroline, I learned the tenderness means inclusiveness. And with my niece, I learned that the tenderness means to touch something very innocent. And I remember when I saw my niece, her innocence, I connect with my own innocence. And I was moved all the time. And I didn't know why, but I feel it was so beautiful. And the third thing is talking with some people a few days ago, I connect tenderness with fragility and with vulnerability. And fragility, because when something is fragile, you need to take care. You need to use in the way where you can preserve this thing. Vulnerability, because it's the capacity to see ourselves and to see what you want to change or what you want to transform, and face that. And I feel for me, this was the first key for my feminine part, because I was quite strong before, and the tenderness gave me the possibility to don't fight for everything, because I don't need to. No, I don't need to fight, and I don't need to be a rebel, because the feminine part doesn't need to do this part. But I need to know how the tenderness works in the way how I can use in my favor. And for me, being inclusive is not a small thing, because I love the people, but I didn't know how to love them. And in some way, what I did is this inclusiveness is like become my world more bigger. And I start to be, I start to have more, no, I think I start to listen and I start to see the people. And when I see others, I can see myself too. And that was quite beautiful. You know, it's like to have a new life in some way to do that. It was really, really touching. And the other thing who helped me a lot, I think tenderness is connected with intimacy. And always I feel very fragile and very, very vulnerable when I need to be intimate with someone or with others. And I don't know how to sustain some intimate conversation. And in this moment now in my life, I searching or I wondering about freedom, and because I want to be really a free person, and I realize the freedom gives me the opportunity to go into the intimacy in the more intimate way. And that for me is very touching because when I can go to this space where I can feel very, sometimes very vulnerable, but I can sustain that because I open myself to these intimate uh, feelings or intimate conversations, or I don't know how to say that, but um, I can be myself more often without feel vulnerable, or even feeling vulnerable, it is okay. Feel uncomfortable, it is okay. No, I think more and more I can sustain that. And now this time I'm working in the freedom, and I feel that gave me this possibility more often. This is my wondering. I don't know if I think I want to finish here, Gabriel, but this is my wondering about the feminine part. For me, definitely change my life when I connect with the tenderness and when I connect with my own innocence, when I can be me more often, when I can be fragile and vulnerable with myself and with others, when I can jump into the next, even don't knowing what is next. Um, that for me is quite good. And when I stop to fight, you know, for me the life changed because before I need to be so strong all the time, fighting and competing, and really I don't need to anymore. But that is natural. No, it's not. It's not. It's like for that I connect with tenderness all the time because it's like the tenderness take this part in my life, and I feel more confident now to be myself more often.
Angelica, that was very lovely sharing. Thank you. I'm loving what you're saying there about the strength of tenderness. We don't often put those two words together, do we? But strength and tenderness or gentleness, and the way you're mapping your journey to that space of being able to feel very strong in that tenderness. It's a little bit like vulnerability and authenticity.
Yeah.
And I imagine too that your story will be resonating with a lot of us who have to walk that path of competition and that outward expression of a very kind of corrupt power in a way, as part of our upbringing or as part of just surviving in our world. And I love the way that you talked about a change point where, you know, you wanted to really get a lot more in touch with your own authenticity and the sacredness of that tenderness. It was so lovely, so well expressed, yeah?
And I want to say these two words go together, strength and tenderness, because tenderness is soft, it's gentle, but for being soft and gentle, you need to be very strong too, because I think you need to connect with something from yourself, which is quite genuine and authentic. And it's not possible to be authentic for me if you are not strong. And if you don't have this power to face, because sometimes the authenticity is not so lovely because you see many things. But doesn't matter. Why not? You know, why you cannot see many things in yourself? That is the beauty, you know. We have so many aspects, and every aspect is so unique and so beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I'm wondering about Philippa and Maureen. Has there been a similar story to you around the way that you've experienced the feminine and how you would define it? We've used some keywords here like, you know, like inclusiveness, tenderness, strength, and they're not contradictory in any way. And Angelica's used words like listen, and she's talked about, you know, moving into the next step and not even knowing what the next step is. Is this resonating with your uncovering or discovering or experience of the feminine?
Well, for me, it does, because I think to be vulnerable, it takes a lot of courage, because you sort of, in my life, I feel exposed by being vulnerable. And I think you have to, I felt that I had to at times, you know, take control, or I would lapse if I was too vulnerable. I wouldn't be able to cope. But later on, you know, I realised that it takes courage to be vulnerable. And you do feel freer, Angelica, I agree. You feel so free, and your self-respect kind of comes through more too when you're authentic.
Yeah, I would say as well that it's a lifelong journey towards authenticity, and that we begin by perhaps being a version of ourselves that society has sanctioned as being okay, or we observe as being rewarded, and we perhaps become something that we're not quite fully on the inside. But the courage that it takes to really peel off those layers and discover, you know, the essence of who I am at my core, it does take courage, it does take strength, and feeling vulnerable and feeling the power of that. You know, that's quite a sort of contradiction in terms in a way. But there is a power that comes from embracing that softer side and welcoming it in, that it's part of who you are. It's not something to be pushed away, but that from that soft tenderness comes a huge strength that enables you to, you know, be in the world in a truly authentic way, including all the parts of yourself, rather than just the parts which you feel are going to be acceptable to others.
Like a gateway to wholeness. And you were also referring there to, Angelica, to it being, you know, sort of like a gateway to greater intimacy in conversations and in your interactions with others. Is there, yeah?
Sorry, I think it's intimacy. I think is for me, is the capacity sometimes to just be there and be with all yourself and even see what is happening with you and just be there and trust. Because sometimes it's very uncomfortable. Sometimes it's very, you don't know what is happening. And sometimes you can see in yourself new things or new feelings or things you don't like. But just be there and be with all the universe of who you are there is so beautiful, really. And a few days ago, I was talking with someone, and we have some conversation, very intimate in some way. And this person said, "Please talk because I feel like uncomfortable." I said, "No, I feel I can be in silence. I can be uncomfortable." And I listen myself, and I like it. I like to be uncomfortable. You know, it's like I just want to be there with my feelings and with the feelings of others. And that for me is a learning, because sometimes we want to feel with things for be in the place where I can manage. But we don't need to manage all the time everything, because if not, I don't think it's possible something new emerge. And if we want to go to the next step, or we want to have something new, we need to just be there for the something beautiful emerge. And usually it will be something beautiful and something unique. I love that, and I think that is connected with intimacy. I think that today.
It is, yeah. I like what you're saying there about it being a way of, staying in that uncomfortable space so that newness can create. You bring in newness by allowing yourself to, I guess, move outside of your comfort zone, the things that are really familiar to you, so that it heralds in newness, doesn't it?
Yeah. And, move beyond our comfort zone is need to be familiar for everyone, because the world shows us we will move in this direction without stop now. And we need to learn to be with ourselves. And we are such beautiful creators. I don't know how to say that in English, but we are such beautiful beings. And just we need to see that. And if we can see that more often, really will be quite great, this uncertainty in the world, because we can live with that. But if we don't know ourselves, it's not easy to be with us in this time. Then I need to feel good things.
That's lovely, Angelica. I'm wondering if you could take us into a meditation where we're really enveloped in the feminine and move into ourselves as the feminine. That would be lovely. Would you be able to do that for us?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to say I was quite nervous with this conversation because my English is not the best thing in the world. However, I want to say yes, because I think say yes is a very feminine way. And what I want to do is some like an exercise with few words, then the people can follow. And just what I want to do, because when I imagine tenderness, I imagine it's the experience where you can come back to the heart. And I will ask to all of you to imagine this hand is full of light. Just imagine that. And then I will ask to all of you to put this hand in your heart And imagine your heart become full of light. And this hand full of light is sustaining this heart to become full of light too. And we just can be there for a while. And the light will be there when you put attention, when you put all your energy. Then I want to invite all of you to have some moment where you can embrace yourself, embrace your heart, and just feel light. And just be there. Taking care of yourself. Just be tender with yourself. Be sure your heart is full of light. Just be careful. And probably some thought will come to you to distract you, and just come back to your heart and let your hand sustain your heart full of light. And do it with such tenderness and in a very soft way, but just be present. This is the moment to take care of yourself. This is the moment to just be tender and soft and quiet and light. And in this silence, in this quietness, in this tenderness, start to open your eyes very softly. Put your hand in your heart. Keep it your heart very light. And come back to this moment, to this present. Bring your presence to this space again.
Thank you, Angelica. That was a beautifully softly cushioned meditation. Thank you for that.
Thank you,
Indeed. And also, Angelica, I want to thank you especially. I know English isn't your first language. It has been lovely to listen to you, and you are very well understood. Thank you. Thank you for doing that for us.
Thank you.
It's very rich when we have, to be able to listen to your experiences based in Chile, and this is the beauty of the internet. We can connect in and listen to stories from all around the world. So thank you for your courage to come on and speak in a language that is second to your mother tongue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Look, I'd like to check in with Maureen now. Maureen lives in the rural environment of Scotts Creek, Victoria, in Australia. And as I mentioned before, she has formal qualifications in education, organisation development and family therapy. And she's continued her interests and studies in such areas as grief and loss, stillness meditation, palliative care and emergency management. And she's been a daily practitioner of Raj Yoga meditation for over 20 years and has actually been involved in designing the core curriculum for tutor training for the Brahma Kumaris in Raja Yoga meditation throughout Australia. And on an experiential level, Maureen has 4 daughters and a son, and 3 stepdaughters and a stepson, in addition to 15 grandchildren. Maureen, I sense your life has been filled with deep and profound change within your inner and outer world. And perhaps you'd like to share experiences with us of the fluidity of the feminine and the stabling and the, like the stabilizing influence of spirituality in your life.
Well, thank you, Gabrielle. I'll do my best. First, I'd just like to say how excited I was about the title of the talk, Explore the Feminine, because to me it denotes movement and different awarenesses and a growth and a lot of change. And today I just wanted to connect the spirituality and the feminine and the impact that it has on my life. And as Gabrielle said, my background has been mostly education, and I started off as a primary school teacher. So my approach is always very simple and very practical. And when I looked at spirituality and what it was to me, I came up with this image of a river. And the river goes on different terrains as it travels. However, it always winds up in the ocean because that's its goal, that's its purpose, its very strong purpose. And I looked at my life and I thought that's how I kind of connect to my spiritual life, that I've always thought it has a deeper purpose, that things aren't always just as we see them now. The second thing was that, like a river or a stream, it's my unique journey. There is no other me in this life. And my journey is unique, and then I can appreciate that everyone else's journey is also unique. And like a river that is on the earth, my spiritual practice, I think, has to be grounded in my life, in the real world, in the relationships that I have, and not just, like we always say, not just in a cave. And in my own life, I have gone, my river, if I look at myself as a river, has traversed many situations, some rocky, some smooth, some very deep pools, some very challenging waterfalls where I felt that I'm free falling in my life. But I look at it all as experience and an ability to keep kind of flowing. And I kind of looked at the feminine in another way, in the same way, that it can be looked down as an analogy of the river. If you look at water, you put your hand in the water, it flows through your fingers. It's so soft and so gentle. And yet we know the strength of water. Floods, tsunamis, waves, waterfalls. So water has tremendous force, even though it seems gentle. And water's always been a symbol, the element of water, of feelings and the feminine in lots of psychological practices and a lot of mythology. Water is a very symbolic of the feminine. So I'd like to share with you perhaps some of my personal journey traversing down the river. And some of it's been smooth sailing, as I said, and some has been difficult times with the rocks and the bends, and sometimes I've been in an eddy where I've been stuck. But it's all contributed to my flow of life and where I'm at now. So I'd just like to share some of the things that have happened to me in my life that have had an impact, I suppose, on my view of myself as feminine. When I was 6 years old, we lived in a migrant camp. We just came from overseas. And one day I took it on myself to take a group of children across busy roads in the centre of Melbourne to find the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So I was very blessed to have that sense of exploring. So that's why I like the title so much. And of curiosity. And the exploring, I think, in a feminine sense, is not to explore and put a flag on and I own this now, but just to look at the wonder and the magic of the new place and to see the magic and the wonder in everything. And I felt that experience has really stayed with me. I got into trouble over it, mind you, but never mind. When I went to school, I went to a Christian school, and the experiences that I had there, I just loved going to church. And I loved the ritual, and I loved the prayers, and I loved the silence. And sometimes I used to go to church every day before school. But that didn't match my behaviour, because my mother used to say to me, "Why aren't you like other little girls?" You know, I would have been called in those days a tomboy, because I loved like climbing trees, and I loved writing any injustices. I'd be in there fighting and arguing, and so there was a kind of this imbalance about spirituality and being authentic in my life. And I felt that going to church during the day quietened me down, and I was able to kind of have conversations and to make sense of what was kind of happening in my world. Later on, in my late teens, I married early, and I had 4 daughters and a son. After a few years, when my youngest daughter was just a baby, I was divorced, and I had to somehow earn a living to support the children. And the only thing that I could do was to teach. That was the only thing that I was trained to do, and then I could have school holidays with the children and everything as well. But because I was a woman and a divorcee, I was regarded as not quite right, and I had to I felt like I was under observation all the time, and I was being criticised and being watched, and my children were, people say, oh, look at those, you know, the children are naughty, it's because of their mother, you know, she's divorced and she's a failure. And so what I did was then saying, I wanted to explore other things. And so I turned, for my own self-esteem and my self-respect, I turned to other Eastern philosophies, different spiritual groups. I joined the Brahma Kumaris. I looked at Taoism, Buddhism, and it was just a wealth of ideas and different perspectives on yin and yang and the feminine and the strength of the feminine. And I entered into a different world. It was my support. I used to say that my books and my meditation at that time was my best friend, because I could come and I really felt a whole person. And I gained from that wisdom and resilience. So all the time, the flow of the river was changing, and my personal landscape was changing within. Then turn to my children. I had, as Gabrielle said, on my own, I had 4 daughters. And I'm very proud of the women they've become. They've become passionate, free-thinking, flowing women, very vibrant. And I'm very proud of I look at them with wonder, actually, at how it's taken me so long to get to a stage that they're at so young. I love conversing with them and learning their ideas, and I'm learning all the time. My son was gay, and that was like free-falling, you know, for me, because I had no experience. I didn't know any gay people. I led a kind of a sheltered life, working at a Christian school, and I didn't know anything about being gay, but love for my son, which was a very strong feeling, I wanted, and then coupled with my curiosity and my exploration, I wanted to find out. I wanted to know about it. I wanted to understand. And I learned from that gender is more fluid, that there wasn't just, and, you know, the him or there, and sometimes he used to sort of dress up in drag at times, and I remember saying to him, do you want to be a girl? Did you want to be a woman? He said, oh no, how awful. So I had to really understand all these kind of ambiguities and things. And then it came, you know, then it led to my self-understanding. And I realised that as a woman, I wasn't a clone either, that my gender was very fluid, that I looked at some women and they were very feminine compared to me. And so I began to really accept myself a lot more, and look at the wonder of, as Angelica said, of the being, and that it was okay to be myself and to be different, because I always felt that I was very different. So then, on reflection, that where am I now, and on the river, and as a woman of 76, I see myself at the mouth of the river, I guess, in a tranquil, fertile time. The delta of the river is a very fertile place. And I look at myself as being in a very rich, deep, still place, and a very tranquil part of my journey. And I feel very happy. So I don't feel that my journey now is not based in anger and wanting to change others, but in joy and gratitude. I have a reverence for nature and for ancient knowledge. I celebrate inclusion. and I support interfaith cultures. They're my primary kind of feelings I have at the moment. And I've come to the space where I feel much more peaceful and happy, but however, I'm always happy to resist injustice or wrongdoing, but not in the way perhaps that I would have years ago, in an angry way, but in a non-violent way, and to stand up for others and to stand up for myself. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to reflect on my journey. And as I said, it's just a very simple kind of life, but thank you very much, and I wish you all peace. Thank you.
Maureen, thank you for that. So much living wrapped just so succinctly into, you know, and I love that analogy of the river. Thank you for doing it that way. You know, just walking with you on that journey that you through the river, you know, that there's always a deeper purpose. It's not shallow, it's constant movement, and the richness of that movement, and then sharing those little snippets with us around, you know, points in your life where there was some experience and you changed the way you think because you were so prepared to understand and explore things further, and recognizing the fluidity of gender. Yeah, so much in that, Maureen, and what a beautiful space to be in where you are now, as you describe. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Isn't it? Yeah. Angelica and Philippa, how's this resonating with you? Is this is similar to you in some ways, obviously different experiences, but the basis or what's behind it, is it similar or different, or how is it resonating?
Yeah, you go, Angelica.
No. I just want to say I love this connection you did with the river, because in some way I feel it's like that, and sometimes it's quite strong, and sometimes look very soft, and I love what you say about your son, and about your understanding of others, because I feel in some way is connected with understanding yourself, you know, because when look like when seems like we understanding others, really is what is happening is ourselves become more bigger, and I love this experience, Maureen. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Angelica. Thank you.
I find it so touching when people share their life story in the way that you have, Maureen, because you can really appreciate where someone's strength is coming from. And, you know, I'm so in awe of the fact that you were able to raise 5 children on your own. Wow. I mean, that is really something. And went out to work and kept the whole show together. And this analogy that you've shared with us of the connection between the feminine and the element of water, but not just water, the river. And you've got this beautiful pre-Raphaelite picture on the wall behind you of the river with a woman in her boat. And that is the journey of our life. And, you know, I think it's useful for women to know that life, in the same way that water goes on a journey, our lives go through different stages and phases, and it's not all kind of just clean sailing down the river. I think that's extremely helpful. And you know, you shared that you're 76 now, and you feel that you're at the delta, the point where the river is meeting with the ocean, and there's so much richness in that. And I think that is the reward, the fruits of having survived the choppy waters that came before that. But that those experiences are what have made you who you are, and have given you the strength to be the person that you are today. And I'm sure you would say you wouldn't change a single thing about your journey, because even though it's been hard, it's drawn out from you the qualities that might not have come any other way. So, even our hard times, when we look back on our lives, there is often, through the pain, there is an emerging understanding and an emerging strength. And I think it's really good to reframe those choppy waters in this way and see it as contributing to the wholeness of our journey, when viewed as a whole.
Yes, because I think you have a new awareness of something different. It's about your consciousness and your awareness. You're aware of something that's different. So, and I think the other thing is you can't go back. The water's flowing, we're flowing, we can't go back. And some people try to be stuck in the same place and don't flow, and they want to sort of think way things are, they want them to be safe and they feel safe in this spot, but it can't happen, because that purpose, that flow is natural. And change or awarenesses, it happens one way or the other, isn't it, really?
And this picture on the wall behind you, the girl is kind of looking up almost for divine inspiration. And I think there is a lovely connection between the element of water and our connection with the divine. And you can see the river flowing to the ocean, and in a way the ocean is returning to the source. It's returning to the ground of all being. And there's one more phase of water which you didn't touch on, which is the still water. If you imagine a lake which is perfectly still, and it's like, if we can bring stillness into our lives, into our journey of life, then what happens with the lake is that it reflects what is above. So it reflects the mountains, it reflects the sky, it reflects the clouds. And in the same way, if we can bring stillness into our life, then we can reflect that which is greater than ourselves. And that can be reflected in our lives. So the value of still waters, I think is really beautiful. And then, of course, returning to that experience of the ocean and our original self. Yeah.
Thank you, Philippa, because that picture is the Lady of the Lake. It's a very medieval picture, and that stillness of the lake is so important. And I love it. Thank you for bringing that up. I didn't mention that, but I was talking about eddies, but I should have mentioned the stillness of the lake. It is such a beautiful image. Thank you for mentioning that.
The stillness of the lake is something perhaps you got in your early years, Maureen, when you went to church. I don't know, but you did talk about.
Yes, I did.
You did talk about that a little bit, in the sense of a place of quiet for you.
Yes, it was quiet, and quite of excitement too. It was. I loved it. It was. I was excited to go. So you can be excited and still at the same time.
Some lovely things coming in through the chat box. I love your story, so open and honest, and some hearts coming through there as well. So it's gorgeous. Philippa, you're going to say something?
I was just going to say, I also love the part of Maureen's story where you shared about being a 6-year-old that took a group of children across the road to find the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And I think our early childhood experiences say so much about what is to come in our life. And you've raised 5 children, and you've maybe observed that in your own children. But I think, there are the seeds within the child of what is going to be coming in the course of their life. And I think very often as adults, if we can look back on our childhood and try and identify what were those core feelings that we had, those dreams, those desires, those aspirations, because very often those are the qualities that we come in with and express as children, but then society can very often educate us out of wanting those things.
Yes. Mm.
So, you know, it's a lovely practice to look at oneself as a child and see, what were my passions? What was I about?
Yeah. Mm. Yes, before we were kind of indoctrinated. I think I was reading a while ago about, you know, we have physical DNA, but we have like emotional DNA as well. And we can change our emotional DNA. We can change that indoctrination, that what we were told we should be like to be a good girl, to conform, to not make waves, to, you know, but we can change that. But then getting back to our original nature and our original impulses, if you like, is the way to go too, isn't it? Really, just to, you get a glimpse, you're right, of your inner self, your inner child. Mm.
Yeah, thanks so much, Maureen. That was very rich. Thank you for that. I'm wondering if you would lead us into a meditation, and I'm guessing it's probably going to be a river, but let's see what you've got for us.
Maybe just sit in a comfortable position and just take a few breaths in your own time. And imagine that breath is the water, cleansing water, full of love, the emotion of water. And as you breathe in, you're breathing in love. And we watch this movement of the water, and we feel our hearts increasing with the love we feel for ourselves and for others. And with the love, there is an increasing awareness of the deep flowing silence within your heart. And I think to myself, where am I on my journey on the river? Silently call to mind someone who is with you now that you would like to give a blessing to. Look at that person with your mind's eye, with love. Now, if you listen deeply, you begin to feel the peaceful silence at the center of your heart. I allow streams of living water to stream from my heart. Your heart is where your treasure is. So love with all your heart. Om Shanti.
Thank you, Maureen. It was a very gentle meditation and heartfelt. Thank you for that. I'd like now to check in with our third guest speaker, that's Philippa. And as I mentioned before, she's based in England and is an award-winning documentary maker and radio presenter. Having worked for BBC Radio for many years, including 7 years as a staff reporter and presenter for Women's Hour on BBC Radio 4, she's now working on a national project, 100 Women of Spirit, which explores and celebrates the role of women and spirituality in the workplace. Philippa is also an ordained interfaith minister with One Spirit Interfaith Alliance, and she's practiced Raj Yoga meditation with the Brahma Kumaris for nearly 40 years. Philippa, you have been making a significant contribution to the feminine, and in particular women as spiritual leaders. Perhaps you could share some of your experiences and insights with us of women leadership, women as spiritual leaders, and the solidity and solidarity of the feminine.
Thanks so much, Gabrielle. As you said, I do have an interest in feminine leadership. It's something that I have always felt intuitively was a part of humanity's journey that needed to be brought back into balance. But I'm really feeling it even more as I speak to you this morning from the UK, as we have a situation that has evolved in the last few days, where it seems like we're potentially on the brink of a war in Europe. Indeed, we're at the start of a war in Europe. And we have the tanks rolling from one country into another. And to me, that's a real sign of the imbalance of leadership, of the qualities of the masculine and feminine. And it feels very poignant, actually, to be having this conversation at this time. So, yeah, it's quite heartfelt, really, what I'm sharing with you this morning. Because of this situation that we're now facing, which, you know, who knows how it's going to evolve, but it has the potential to really get out of control. And so really calling in the qualities of the feminine at this time that the world needs so much. And like Maureen and Angelica have shared, I suppose my story seen in the context of my life, early childhood experiences do also play a part. I grew up in a family of 4 girls. Unlike Maureen's family, where she had the little boy tucked in there, we didn't have the boy, it was just girls. And the dynamic between my parents was one where, you know, very strongly it was my mother who was, you know, the leader, the matriarch. And her mother, my grandmother, was also a very strong matriarchal figure. And when we look back through the generations, the women have all been incredibly strong, powerful women. And yet society curtailed their passion, curtailed their strength. I remember my grandmother was a really gifted chemist, and she wanted to get a job she was offered, she was given a job in a chemist's lab, and her father said, no daughter of mine is going out to work, and she was forced to stay at home and, you know, have that enthusiasm, that passion dampened. You know, my generation, that wasn't the case, but as we emerged into a society often played that part of dampening and suppressing power and passion and a more feminine way of doing things. So I went from an all-girl family. I was educated in an all-girl school, so all my teachers were women, all the role models that I grew up with were women. And then I was only 18 years old when I came into the Brahma Kumaris. And of course, it's an organization, and I think it's possibly one of the things that really attracted me in the beginning was that it's a women-led organization. And I arrived at the headquarters in Mount Abu back in 1982. And at that time, there were still many of the original founders of the organization. This group of 300 women who had devoted their lives to their journey, their meditation practice, and were being educated to become world leaders. And they were amazing women who had this incredible balance of the masculine and feminine within themselves. And that was partly how I had always experienced the world, but it was also massively inspiring to see this example of leadership being completely balanced between the masculine and the feminine. And very often these women, if it weren't for the fact that they were wearing a sari, you wouldn't be 100% sure whether they were masculine or feminine, because those qualities were just in perfect balance within themselves. So I then came back to the UK, having had a year abroad and, you know, working for the BBC. What programme was I going to work on? Of course, it was Woman's Hour. It was a programme looking at the qualities of the feminine. That was where I naturally gravitated. And so really my whole internal experience has been one where the feminine qualities have been given real importance and have been really prioritized. But that contrasting with the experience of being out in the world, where those qualities aren't always necessarily rewarded in the way that you would want them to be rewarded. So I've really journeyed with what is it that we want to see in leadership. And I think this balance between the two impulses is probably a good way of describing it. But I've got a little list here of what I would consider to be the feminine within leadership that we can perhaps just look at and explore. And, you know, as I do that, I suppose what I'm doing is offering a vision of future leadership where these qualities are given a sense of importance in a way that we're not seeing in the world at the moment. So the quality of having power with rather than power over. You know, this whole thing around power is so key to leadership, but to seek power with, in other words, to empower others along with empowering ourselves, rather than having power over others, feels important. Looking for win-win solutions. So the old paradigm, perhaps the masculine paradigm that we have lived with for more than 2,000 years, has very often had winners and losers. You know, I win, you lose. Whereas perhaps the vision for future leadership is one where there is win-win. What's good for you is also good for me. That together we rise up rather than some rising whilst others are not, or that our rising is at the expense of others. So this new vision looking to find win-win solutions. The ability to see the good of the whole. This broad vision of what is going to be good for the whole system rather than just good for part of the system. Thinking about the impact 7 generations hence. I think the qualities of the feminine, of nurturing, of caring, of seeing the consequence of actions is quite a natural one. Often women find themselves in this role of being the mother, of being the carer, and looking at the impact of actions well into the future, rather than short-term gains. Look at the long-term impact. The quality of empathy, of being able to relate to another person's story. There's that saying of being able to walk a mile in someone else's moccasins. And I think this is really critical to our vision of future leadership, that we don't just look at a situation from our own perspective, but look at it from 360 degrees. How does it seem from over there? So this holistic world view. Possibly the quality of humility as a feminine quality, balanced with ego. It's not that we don't need those male qualities, but we need to support and embrace the balancing qualities. So humility as well as ego. I'm going to use a word which you may not be perhaps so sure of, but the word sensing. Using this intuitive faculty. So it's not a faculty of the intellect, it's not a faculty of knowing, but a faculty of sensing, of being able to read the energy, feel the vibration, and make leadership decisions based on that intuitive part of ourselves, the sensing part. Acceptance, the ability to accept what is and work with it rather than work against it. And being approachable. It's a lovely quality in leadership, if you can be approachable rather than at a distance. Remaining present. So with a meditation practice, learning to be present first to yourself and then present to others, and ultimately present to the divine energy, the energy of divine love. And when you learn to be present with all of those things, then you can be present with whatever situation is happening and really feel your way into it from that sense of experiencing from deeply within. And being unafraid to fail. Perhaps this is an example of a feminine approach. I think this fear of failure can sometimes mean that we don't take risks, or we label ourselves in a certain way, but actually to embrace failure as part of our learning. It's how we move forward. It's how we learn. And then the interconnectedness of all things. All things are related, and to, as I touched on earlier, being able to see that bigger picture. So you could put all of these things together under the umbrella of emotional intelligence. And, the vision that I hold for leadership moving forwards is one where not only is there this beautiful bouquet of qualities, which we can call emotional intelligence, these values that we want to live by, that we want to share with others, but there is also a spiritual intelligence, that there is a connection between humanity and the divine realm and our own authentic spiritual self. How amazing would the world be if our leaders had these qualities, these values, and that leadership was value driven, that leadership was based on cooperation with others, on collaboration, on doing what is right for everyone, not just right for a certain section of society. And so it's really time for these qualities of the feminine to come into our field of vision and be given value and importance. And how do we do that? Well, we begin by doing that within ourselves, by valuing those qualities within ourselves. And I think very often as women, we have had to put those parts of ourselves to one side in order to succeed. Because in many ways, men have allowed women to play the game, but the rules haven't changed. So we're trying to play a game by the old rules. So the invitation is to change those rules, change the rules of the game, and to say to myself, these are the values that I'm going to work with, enjoy, use in my professional work, use in my personal life. I'm giving value to all these qualities of the feminine that we have talked about, which men have equally. And I think it's important that we're using this word feminine rather than female, because it's not limited to either male or female. It's a quality that is accessible to both men and women equally. We are all of us made up of the qualities of the masculine and the feminine, but it's time to bring them more into balance. And perhaps really importantly, the qualities of the feminine are those which inspire and enable others to reach their own potential as well, with the understanding that it's by each of us reaching our full potential that collectively humanity can reach its full potential. So it's not that I'm not going to share my secrets with you because you might then become better than me, and then what's going to happen to me. It's with a vision of let's share the best of ourselves with all around us, so that we can all together equally experience that harmony within, and take care of each other and enable each of us to flourish. I think this word flourish is a beautiful one. And, you know, my definition of success would be that which enables you to flourish. And the more you flourish, the more I flourish, the more we flourish together, and the more humanity can flourish. So I'm calling in these qualities of the feminine, these qualities of feminine leadership, because they are just so needed in the world today. And we're not serving humanity by hiding those qualities under a bushel, by playing small to a more power-driven version of success, but by embracing that part of ourselves and claiming as vitally important that part of ourselves, then hopefully we can find that balance point within ourselves, inspire others to find that balance point, and move forwards together collectively as a society, as a humanity, where there is an expression of the beautiful qualities of both the masculine and feminine in harmony with each other. So I think I'll pause there and let Gabrielle into the conversation, and Maureen and Angelica.
Philippa, that was lovely, wasn't it? I'm just really loving your invitation to change the rules of the game. And I was really feeling too the way you opened up. I mean, I can't imagine anyone wouldn't have been moved by what's happened in our world in the last 72 hours or so, with like you say, being on the brink of another war, and evoking the feminine, time to evoke the feminine in a big way, actually, from and the list of, wasn't really a list, I was moving nicely through it as you were speaking it all, and it was really resonating with me, power with rather than power over, and seeing the whole, and there was something that came through, which I think you pretty much answered it. It was saying we've lived through 2,000 years of male dominance, and this week we've witnessed disastrous masculine leadership heralding another war. Surely it's time for the feminine, time to recreate, re-emerge the feminine leadership to bring global harmony. And it's asking, what is time calling women or the feminine to do and to be? And I think you've probably pretty much answered that in terms of what you shared with us about how you define the feminine, that emotional intelligence, the spiritual intelligence, and things that go with that. But let's open it up to Angelica and also to Maureen to listen to what you might add to what Philippa has said.
Thank you, Philippa. I just love what you share, and I love the structure you gave to. But one of the things I love a lot is this afraid to fail, because in some way we live in the world where you cannot fail, never, but it's not possible to do anything without fail, because we need to take risk and we need to do new things. And what is happening in some way is like, because we don't want to fail, we repeat what we're doing. And that is what's happening now. The big leaders, which I don't know what that means in this moment, they're repeating patterns which will bring to the world to the same thing that always happens. And I love what you describe in every aspect. But this be afraid to fail give us the big opportunity to make a big change in the world. And I will add to not be afraid to be just few people, because sometimes we feel, oh, I will wait to the leaders take new decisions. And really, I think it's time to take our own decisions, and don't be afraid of that, because that becomes the big decision in the world, because the most of the people probably who listen to you will feel, I want that. I feel that I want to do these changes. I just love it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
It was lovely, wasn't it, that comment about success, and what that, redefining what success is. It's that which makes you flourish and others flourish. And even the word flourish sounds so lovely, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'd just like to add, yes, that I agree that the leadership in the world is going through a crisis at the moment. But I'm noticing other things as well in the world. And I'm noticing like young fathers now that are a different type of fathers than perhaps we had. They're really embracing a lot of the feminine qualities and taking care of the children. And it's a different kind. I look at the fathers of my grandchildren, and they're a different kind. I just marvel at those qualities that you were just talking about. They're really in evidence. And I think this is happening at a grassroots level and coming up. Some of those leaders that we're talking about are old school, old world leaders. But I think coming up is a new era of people, and the roles aren't so clearly defined, and men are able to show emotion and show feelings instead of, the only emotion when I was young that boys were allowed to show was anger, and that was kind of praised. You were angry, you were a good boy, but cry, oh, sookie and whatever. So I think the new age men, the nowadays new family men, the fathers that I see, And the other thing that's very hopeful is our relationship with Mother Earth, that there's a big environmental movement coming and people are more sensitive to the creative side and looking at the planet as a living planet and to take care. And I think there's a big movement of that. That's the feminine side coming for men and women. So I'd see that, you know, the grassroots level, there's a lot of hopeful kind of signs that I see in my everyday world. And I think, you know, what we see in the press and whatever is very frightening, and what's happening. My daughter lives in Europe and I'm a bit frightened too for the same thing, but concerned, but more than frightened. But I do see a lot of hope.
It's lovely. Can I invite you, Philippa, to lead us into a meditation on this? And perhaps we might want to consider too sending our good wishes to that particular part of the world, the Ukraine, and also to Russia, to inspire peace. I'll leave it with you, Philippa.
Thanks, Gabrielle. So, to begin, I would like to invite you to contemplate the qualities of the divine feminine. I remember when I first heard this expression, there was confusion. How can the divine be feminine? Surely the divine is masculine. But actually, sitting with this notion of the divine energy being this perfect balance of the feminine and the masculine enables me to find that point of balance within myself. And as I sank into this feeling of love, the love that flows from the divine, I feel the qualities of nurture, of protection, of inclusion, of both the mother and father. I feel those qualities really settling within my own being. And in this moment, I feel appreciation for the women who have played significant part in my life. In what way did their qualities support and nourish me? How did their vision awaken something deep within my being? A vision which enabled me to believe in myself, to be the whole of who I am. To find that point of balance within my being. As we care for Mother Earth, for the planet on which we live, so too will our beautiful planet care for us. nurture us, allow us to flourish. By broadening my vision to include all that is. Feeling that interconnection, feeling a sense of the human family that we are. Let me embrace with the love of the mother all of God's children. And as we do, we send our love most particularly to those who are being displaced from their home. Those who are feeling their lives are becoming insecure. Let us hold in our hearts a healing energy of love. Om Shanti.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Philippa. Very, very lovely meditation on the feminine. Thank you for sharing that with us. And it's been a very full conversation with our three speakers, and the questions that have come in, I haven't had time to pitch specifically, but the answers have been woven into the conversation, as you'd probably anticipate. So I'm going to encourage you to listen to it again and receive that answer in that way. But at the moment, I'm pressed to be able to and need to thank Philippa and Maureen and Angelica for joining us on Youniverse tonight. It went very quickly, and there was much depth in what you shared. So thank you for sharing your ancient knowledge, the depth of your experience, your personal stories, hugely rich. Thank you for all of that. And also, most of all, our thanks and blessings for the contribution you're all making to being the feminine in your everyday living, for daring to imagine differently and for manifesting that in your living and sharing that with our world. So our blessings and thanks and love to the three of you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Gabrielle.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maureen and Philippa.
So viewers,
Angelica.
yeah. So viewers, you may like to browse our online bookshop, Eternity Inc., which has a full range of books on self-empowerment and spirituality, and the topics that that Philippa and Maureen and Angelica have shared this evening. They're always at not-for-profit prices. Some of the great books include Soul Power by Nikki de Cataract, The Soul Illuminated by Judith Pemmel, Companion of God by Dadi Janki, God's Healing Power by Sister Janti, The Four Faces of Women by Carolyn Ward, Sex is Not Compulsory by Liz Hodgkinson, and a variety of gorgeous affirmation cards by Marie Edery, such as Soul Power, The Colours of the Heart, and Feeling cards. There's lots to explore there. There's meditation commentaries and instrumental music and songs by women musicians as well. So be sure to check it out. If you'd like to subscribe to Open Your Eyes to the Universe to receive monthly updates, then please email us at special.events@au.brahmakumaris.org. And now finally, I'd like to tell you about our next episode of Open Your Eyes to the Universe. We're going to be joined by Denise Lawrence from Europe, and she'll be joining me in a conversation on soul consciousness. And we kind of edge towards that in tonight's conversation as well, but we'll be discussing what is soul consciousness, what are the benefits of being soul conscious, how do you practice it, and how does it actually transform our inner and outer worlds. So that's on Saturday, the 26th of March at 6 p.m. and it's on Open Your Eyes to the Universe. So tonight we're going to close out our episode with a song from Bliss, and it's called Shiv Shakti. I think you'll love it. And until we see you again in March, take a moment to celebrate the cultural, political, and socio-economic achievements of women on International Women's Day on the 8th of March. And may you always honour and listen to the feminine within yourself and within others. Om Shanti.
Woman of wisdom, woman of power, woman of strength, woman of grace, lioness of courage, she who spins and weaves and cuts the way, she who occupies sacred space, she who spins and weaves and cuts the way, she who occupies sacred space. Stand up, Shiv Shakti, take your stage. Stand up, Shiv Shakti, calm their rage. Stand up, Shiv Shakti, turn the page. Take what is yours, claim what is ours. Woman, take one and all of your powers. Woman of peace, take war from the world. Woman of silence, this song is yours. Woman of mercy, woman of love, woman of love, lioness of courage, who spins and weaves and cuts the way, she who tells the heavenly story, she who spins and weaves and cuts the way, she who tells the heavenly story. Stand up, Shiv Shakti, take your might. Stand up, Shiv Shakti, take Shiv Shakti. Stand up, Shiv Shakti, take God's light. Take what is ours, claim what is yours. Woman, take one and all of your powers. Take what is ours, claim what is yours. Woman, take one.